So for question 21, given the function fx is square root 3 minus 2x. So this is a surd function. So show that this function is a one-to-one function. So we have two methods here. Either we can do graphical method or we can do algebraic methods. So what I'm doing now is algebraic method. So for algebraic method, we will put x1 into the function, then equal to the x2 fx1 equals to fx2. So we try to substitute x1 and x2 into our function. So when we substitute our function, here will be square root 3 minus 2x1. And then this right hand side, it will be 3 minus 2x2. So our working here is going to find out what is our x1. Is it our x1 equals to x2 only? If our answer can get x1 equals to x2 only, then this function is one-to-one. If we get two answer, means this function cannot be one-to-one. Okay, so this is how we show out. So means we have to show it clearly how we move our step, how we get the x1. So in order to remove the surd, we have to square both sides. So this is a surd equation. So when we square both sides, we notice that we can remove the surd for x1 here. Then we're leaving 3 minus 2x1 equals to 3 minus 2x2. So we move our 3, it will be minus of. So from here we can see 3 minus 3, it can be simplified. So find out our x1. Simplify until we get x1. So when I move my negative 2, it will be divide. So coincident, it can be simplified. So x1 finally equals to x2. So once we get this result, means our answer only have one answer, which is x2. So definitely from here we can do a conclusion, say that this function is a one-to-one function. So that will be our first concept if we're using algebraic method. Substitute x1 at left hand side and substitute x2 at the right hand side, and you must get to this conclusion. Okay. Then we go for question B. They ask us to find out what is our domain and range. So for our domain, surd function is special case because domain we will remember for DSLR. So surd is a one part of the special case for our domain. We need to do some calculation, then only can find out the domain. So what we need to calculate here is under the surd, it must be greater equals to 0. So from here we can find out our domain, move our 3, then divide by negative 2. So when we divide by negative 2, our inequality will be changed. So therefore, domain of the function x less than. So x less than means negative infinity to 3 over 2. Meanwhile, for surd function, in order to find out the range, so it is also a special case because domain we find out of DSLR, so surd is our special case. When we find our range, we will find for Kessler. So S also one of our special case here. So how we going to do our range? We will close out. So we will close this surd function. When I close this characteristic of surd function, I notice that outside here is 0. And this function is positive. So the range of this function is 0 to infinity. So we read the value. The value that we read outside here is our 0. So this function infinity, of course, is going to positive infinity. So this is our domain and range. So this calculation will bring you 1 marks. So actually from domain and range, we can read our graph direction. So if I were domain is negative infinity until 3 over 2, means less than 3 over 2, means our third graph is going to the left. And we read the range is about up or down. So when you read the range here, 0 to infinity. So 0 to infinity means it's going up. So this graph is going to the left and going to the up, going up and to the left. So the graph will be in terms of this direction. So going to the left and going to the up. And then before we draw the graph, question C, that asks us to determine the inverse function and state its domain and range. So inverse function, we will start f inverse equals to y. Then we will inverse the function become f. Domain become range, range become domain. Then we substitute our y. Find out our y. So when I want to move the square root to the right hand side, it will become square. And then move the 3 negative. And then move negative 2 here. It will become x squared minus 3 divided by negative 2. So I simplify the negative 2 here. Negative I will move up. For the numerator, it will be 3 minus x squared over 2. So this will be our inverse function. Once we find our y, because original we let f inverse equals to y. So once we find our y, when we find out our y here, that will be our f inverse. So what is its domain? So domain of f inverse refer to the range, which is 0 to the infinity. Domain of f inverse refer to the range function. Meanwhile, range of the f inverse refer to the domain, which is negative infinity 3 over 2. So the concept here will be here, 1 marks, and finding the f inverse and state out their domain and range. Okay, so for the next part, sketch fx and f inverse at the same axis. So let us draw the x-axis and y-axis correctly. Alright, this is our x-axis and this is our y-axis. So use your ruler to draw it. And reflection axis. So my reflection axis a bit lower. So make sure you make a 45 degree 45 degree in order to represent this y equals to x. This reflection axis. So we read back our domain. We read back our domain of function. Just now we said domain of the function, this is going to the, this one is going to the left, kiri, ini pergi atas. So ke kiri dan ke atas. So bentuk cert tu adalah macam wiper kereta. So bila wiper kereta nak ke kiri dan ke atas, dia macam tu. So macam tu. So di manakah koordinat dia nak start ni? Di manakah koordinat sini dia nak start dan dia smooth ke atas dan ke kiri? So kita tengok domain. We can read out our x is 3 over 2. Then we read out our range. Y here is 0. So this is our starting point. 3 over 2 and 0. So 3 over 2, let's say is here. Alright, so 3 over 2, 0. So this is my starting point in order for me to draw the cert. So the cert is going to left hand side and going up. So this is left hand side going up, this is left hand side going down, this is right hand side going up, this is the right hand side going down. So according our domain and range, they give a direction, left hand side going up. So they will go for this direction. When this graph want to go to this direction, notice that it intersects at my y-axis. So I have to figure out my y-intercept. So I will let x equals to 0 to find out my y-intercept. It will be sqrt3 minus 2 times 0. So it will be sqrt3. So sqrt3, we figure it. Is it sqrt3 how bigger than 3 over 2 or smaller than 3 over 2? Because we estimate this length for 3 over 2. So 3 over 2 is 1.5. When we press our calculator, sqrt3 is equals to 1.7 something, 1.732. So means that it will be longer. It will longer. So when you shoot up, it will be longer. Alright. So this is our cert. So you can see this will be our sqrt3. So my sqrt3 is longer than 3 over 2. Then definitely later on when we want to reflect our F inverse, our graph will be accurate. So make sure we draw it correctly for our function. 3 over 2 here should higher bit because sqrt3 is longer than 3 over 2. Don't forget this one we label fx. We label fx. So lipatlah kertas awak, then lipat, then gores, tengoklah di mana kesan lagi satu yang F inverse ni keluar ni. So after reflection we can see our graph. It will be at here. So this is our 3 over 2. This is our sqrt3. So this is our F inverse. So make sure we label everything. With origin label, x-axis label, y-axis label, axis of reflection label, this intercept, this point label. So in order to get these 3 marks, you take down a notes here. The first mark we will go for your diagram of our f, function f, which is correct. Correct means encoding this y-intercept and the starting point of the cert. Then secondly, we want to see your reflection. Is it your reflection is at the point or not? Correct or not? Got symmetry or not? Then lastly, when we label everything, we get another bonus. So lastly, the marks is checked for label. For your label, is it complete? Your x-axis, your y-axis, your reflection, your function, your F inverse, and then your point, your sqrt3, your 2 over 3, your origin. So for every label, complete the label. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We have 19.